morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice Radio. So today I am here to, share with you the news, the idea, the answer to the question, is Pikachu EX actually any good? Now, it is important to note that at the moment, Super Electric Breaker, the set that features Pikachu EX, has just come out in Japan. When I say just come out in Japan, I mean we've had one weekend of City Leagues. That is it. Think of them kind of like League Cups-ish. That kind of about level. And so we haven't had any giant tournaments, and we've only had one weekend, and we know sometimes it takes more than one weekend for a deck to become good and really get ready, okay? That is very, very important to note. I've told you that, okay? But it's also important to note that we do have information here. We do have a bunch of results. We do have a lot of stuff we can have a little bit of a look at. So with all of that borne in mind, why don't we have a little bit of a look at the metagame from this past weekend? Shout out to Pokécard Book over on Twitter for sharing this. And if we have a look at the top decks, we can... Now, this is the total top 16 metagame for the weekend. And essentially, what we can see is that, the best deck is Raging Bolt by a mile. Gardevoir and Dragapult are still representing. We've got ancient decks doing well. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then you got stuff like Regidrago, Charizard, Cerulege, Terrapagos, Lugia, Miraidon, Ironthorns, Golden Go, and Clorf. Yeah, that's right. Clorf is still legit. These are the decks we're generally seeing popping around everywhere. These are the decks that are, getting into top 16. Well, there's something you might notice there. There's no Pikachu. There is absolutely no Pikachu. Now, it might be in the other decks, of course, but in terms of actually making its way onto the most, successful decks, decks that are making top 16 the most, yeah. There's no Pikachu on there. Pikachu is not making it onto this graphic. Clorf is making it onto this graphic. Pikachu is not making it onto this graphic. So is it then fair to say, hang on a second, Pikachu is terrible? The answer is no. Pikachu as a deck right now isn't good enough, isn't seeing success, isn't ready. That's not to say that it never will, but it is to say that right now Pikachu as a deck in its own right is not being a thing. But if we look at that metagame, you may notice that actually there is something else going on there. And that is the fact that Miraidon is still a legit deck. Now, it's not a top 5 deck, but it is a top 10 deck. Miraidon has been running around doing quite nicely. And in Miraidon decks, Pikachu's getting a lot of love. There are a bunch of decks out there that are playing Pikachu. So we're going to take one that got second in a City League as an example here for showing that actually in Miraidon decks, Pikachu is absolutely legit. Which is lovely. So here's a second place list that got, second place finish over in City Leagues. And you'll notice there are a bunch of cards there from Surging Sparks. Now, the deck is still very much built around Miraidon, let's be clear. It is a Miraidon deck. We are using Miraidon to get all of our lightning Pokemon out. And we still have a nice little attack here that's free energy 220. It's fine. Miraidon's never been necessarily the best attacker around. It is a competent attacker. The attack is fine, but we have a lot of other options. We are, of course, still using Raikou here. Raikou, of course, has damage which scales depending on how many bench Pokemon both you and your opponent have got. And it is particularly good nowadays if you find yourself coming against one of these decks that are playing Area Zero Underdepths. You will be able to take advantage of that as well and do big damage. But of course, you can also play Area Zero Underdepths yourself, and the list I'm showing you here absolutely does play Area Zero Underdepths, because of course, Pikachu is a Terra Pokemon. And that is one of the biggest uses for Pikachu right now. It is a basic Lightning Terra Pokemon. Not the only one we've got, of course. Mewtwo is a basic Lightning Terror Pokemon, but Mewtwo's attack really revolves around Psychic Energy. And we don't play Psychic Energy in Miraidon decks. So Mewtwo becomes absolutely useless. Pikachu's got that ability where it can't be one-hit KO'd and has an attack which can actually work. Or at least could if we played the right energy. Spoiler alert, we're not. And one of the reasons we're not playing the right energy here with Pikachu in a Miraidon deck is because Miraidon decks love Electric Generator. That's kind of the whole point, right? You play a whole bunch of Lightning Energy and then your Electric Generator looks at the top 5 cards of your deck, and then you get to find 2 basic energy and attach them to your bench Lightning Pokemon in any way you like. So even these Miraidon decks that are playing Pikachu are playing it for 2 reasons. Firstly, basic Lightning Terror Pokemon. It allows you to activate the extra bench space for Area 0 Underdepths, and then that means that your Raikou is just a way better attacker. Lightning Rondo does much more damage. But also, it can't be one-hit KO'd, so it's actually kind of nice to just whack this up in the active. If you need to buy a turn, you whack this into the active and just say to your opponent, you can't get a one-hit KO, my ability will save me. So it's basically a way to buy yourself a turn with a Pokemon that's also turning on Area 0 Underdepths. Not sure that was the use we all had in mind for Pikachu EX, but in Miraidon decks, it does actually do that quite nicely. And then elsewhere, of course, we are using Iron Hands as an attacker, because you can take extra prizes, which is awesome. And we're still using Raichu as an attacker here, because you discard as much energy as you want, doing 60 for each energy discarded, and it has basically infinite damage, does Raichu. It's really good for that. If there's a Pokemon that you just need rid of and you just cannot do enough damage with other Pokemon, Raichu will come in very nicely getting that damage. It's one of the best things about Raichu. So that's nice. In terms of new Pokemon, there are actually 3 Pokemon from, well, what's going to be Surging Sparks for us, which come in nicely here. One of which is obviously Pikachu. One of which is Latias EX, gives free retreat to your basic Pokemon. It's great. You need to be able to retreat sometimes. You're playing a deck with entirely basic Pokemon. So, yeah, this is a very nice ability, which means that you can basically get free retreat for your entire deck on a basic Pokemon that just kind of sits chilling on the bench. Like, I can't be the only one that thinks this is really good. And then, of course, the other one we've got here is our friend Magneton, whereby you give up a prize to attach free energy from your discard pile to your bench Lightning Pokemon. Or even, your Lightning Pokemon. I don't even have to be benched. It's any free energy onto your Lightning Pokemon, and it does specifically have to be Lightning Pokemon. So, these cards help a lot. But you'll notice they're not attackers, they are very much support Pokemon. Pikachu is opening up your bench and giving you kind of a stall option. Latias is giving you free retreat. And Magneton is giving you a little infusion of energy, which is lovely. But attackers-wise, Miraidon is still Miraidon and Raikou and Iron Hands and Raichu. That's what we're looking for. Oh, I lied to you. There is actually one other new Pokemon that is seeing a bunch of play in Miraidon, and that is Rotom. Rotom is another very good card that we are seeing pop up in some of these lists, because you've got Crushing Pulse, single lightning energy, your opponent reveals their hand, discard all items and tools you find there. Go second, don't have much of a good turn 1 attack, Rotom's got your back. Also energy short 20 for each energy attached to your opponent's active, can be a good single energy attacker, mostly Crushing Pulses here just to try and frustrate your opponent. So Miraidon gets a bunch of new tricks with this new set, and Pikachu is one of them, but it's not a main part of the deck. You know, take a look at this winning list we saw from City Leagues. It's not playing Pikachu. It's actually also not playing Rotom. They're techs you can take out. But you'll notice that Magneton is in this list, actually is a 2-2. You'll notice Latias is in this list, and that's what we're seeing from these new Miraidon decks. They're all playing Magneton. They're all playing Latias. Those are phenomenal cards that you need to really give extra power to the deck. But Pikachu, just like Rotom, nice little bonus. So we come back to our original question of how good is Pikachu EX? And the answer is, right now, as a deck in its own right, not particularly good. At least it hasn't proven it to be yet. Things could change. And in Miraidon decks, it's now the best option if you want to be playing Area Zero Underdepths and really taking advantage of Raikou. But you'll notice that the winning list I showed you doesn't play Area Zero Underdepths, doesn't play Raikou, and therefore doesn't need Pikachu. It's essentially, we're looking at two different builds of Miraidon. One which is more aggressive and really just going for Miraidon, Iron Hands, and Raichu. So you're going to be playing more Magneton, but you're not playing Raikou or Pikachu or anything like that. And then you've got the one that does play Area Zero Underdepths and does play Raikou. So then in that situation, you are going to play Pikachu, but it's a handy little bonus. It's not a great deck in and of itself. We are early in the Scarlet and Violet 8, the Surging Sparks, the Super Electric Breaker metagame. We have not seen everything by a long shot. Things can change. More information will come out. We are at the very much the beginning of the story here. Right now, I think it's incredibly fair to say that Pikachu, not that big a deal. Don't want to be rude about this, but it's just not that big a deal. But it's still very early, and things can absolutely change. For now, I want to know what you think about this. I want to know if you think Pikachu is legit. I want to know if you think we are going to see more Pikachu as time goes by, or whether you think it is forever going to be overrated. Let me know in the comment section. Good us. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Andrew Kincaid, who you might have seen at Pokemon tournaments, helping out with Playlab, etc., who is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.